Hello, 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 hello. One sec. I'm having a couple technical difficulties. The only chats I can see right now on YouTube. Oh, I'm getting feedback. Okay, one moment here. I'm trying to get this chat thing working. So we have this. I want to. Oh, have the power. Pretty low power. I have OBS Studio open, have YouTube open. What else do I need? Oh, I need UID console. I want to turn on the microphone. Okay, I think this is fine. Oh boy, always fun. I have to change the zoom settings on here. One moment. Zoom. All right, I'm back. How's it going, Z? Oh man, I just changed my schedule a little bit, and now I'm just getting to the new swing of things. You know when you change your routine, and then you have to get used to your routine again? That's where I'm at right now, all over again. So I want to move this here. I want to open up this window so I can monitor myself. This is what happens when you have 3 monitors. Things get a bit tricky. Okay, cool. So it has been a busy week. Where is it? So I signed up for some in-person Chinese classes, and I thought I was studying a lot, like over the last couple of months, but now I'm like actually studying a lot because it's amazing. Actually, it's not unsurprising at all, but it's amazing how much more you study when you're in a room of 6 other people and 5 of them are from Japan, and so their handwriting is freaking perfect. Yeah, 5 of my classmates are from Japan, so their handwriting's perfect. I managed to jump into a class that's already been started, so I feel like I'm a little bit behind in the class, but it's weird because my speaking is quite good for the level for the class, but like my reading is non-existent right now. So like talking, whenever there's like a little group thing where we have to say something about ourselves, like I raise my hand and I'm able to speak just fine, but like the simplest sentence I can't read. So it's fine. If Chinese was easy, everyone would know it. Or well, about half the world already knows it now. But it's been fun on that side. You have the same mouse I have. This mouse is the best. I feel like only software engineers have mice like this because we're always about optimizing. This is the most ergonomic mouse you can buy. I know this because I spent too much time researching, trying to find the most ergonomic mouse. All my friends who ever have to use this mouse hate it because it's different. But that being said, today I'm gonna go over some. This is funny. I actually went over this with my girlfriend a couple of weeks ago, but I've realized the way I use Google Calendar and kind of organize my time, I don't feel like I'm that organized, but after speaking to my girlfriend in particular and my friends, they're like, James, you're super organized. So I actually gave my girlfriend an impromptu crash course on Google Calendar, and she found it super helpful. So today I want to kind of go over how I manage my time as like a freelancer slash student. And so I've noticed ever since when I was a manager and when I started doing more project management, and then now that I'm kind of doing my own thing, I realized when you're just when you're just doing IC stuff, it's pretty easy to plan out your day, because you're coming in at work at around like 9ish, you're leaving at 5ish, and you basically have a block that's like actually code, like actually do work, and then you have some meetings in between. But I've realized that not only does money have compound interest, like if you save $100, put in the S&P, I think something like 10 years later, you're gonna something like 10x your money. I forget the math. But not only does money have compound interest, but I found that time has compound interest. The way I've chosen to spend my time has vastly given me much bigger returns than the way I've ever chosen to spend my money. So a great example of that is the 4 or 5 years I spent on my computer science degree. Yeah, that cost me about, I think, $40,000-$50,000 over 4 or 5 years, which is a good chunk of money. But really, it was spending that 4 or 5 years has the return on investment on that computer science degree is like bonkers. Like without it, I wouldn't have been able to move to the States. I wouldn't have been able to, everything else stemmed from that. So now I'm really realizing now like how important it is to choose exactly where you spend your time, and how important it is to like make investments with your time in a way that when you zoom out 10 years from now, it's like, is this where you want to spend it? And there's 2 ways I go about doing that. I look at it through like a macro level, and then like a long-term level, a medium-term level, and a short-term level. So long-term wise, I put together like a 5-year plan actually a few years ago, and I wrote down the goals I wanted over the next 5 years. And example, I had some goals like make X amount of dollars per year, like financial ones, and then I had other goals like go on tour with Trivium and Invirtu. Now I literally wrote down go on 6-week European tour with Trivium with Invirtu. like I have that written down, and so I have it saved on a Notion doc. I really should print it out so I can look at it, and so that kind of helps guide where I want to go over the next 5 years. So the big ones are go on tour with Trivium, with Invirtu, big one, and you'll see that how that goes in my calendar. Another big one is be able to give presentation in front of 2,000 people in Beijing in Chinese over the next 5 years. So that's another big one. And then another one would be like get married in the next 5 years. So I have these really big goals. And then that goes down to every year, I kind of make a rough plan. I always like making a rough plan of what I want to focus on for that year. Now, it's funny because I remember doing this right before COVID hit. I had all these plans before COVID hit, and those kind of fell out the window. So it's part of it is making plans and then being flexible after the fact. And then finally, on like a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, I'll kind of make themes for a month and then themes for the week. And then from there, I start planning stuff out like 1 hour at a time. I used to have like a really big to-do list that I would keep on paper. I would keep in apps like Trello or whatever. But I've realized instead of doing to-do lists now, I use my calendar as a to-do list. And for every single task, I put some time to it. So it's actually easier if I just kind of show you. So I'll show you what my current week looks like, and then I show you how I go about thinking and planning 1 week at a time. And honestly, just by spending a little bit of time planning out my week, I feel like I've gained so many more hours. And I feel a lot less stressed out. Which is funny because a lot of people avoid doing this thing because they feel like it'll stress them out more. So if I go to the screen share, so this is what my calendar looked like this week. And now I show this to like my friends. Actually, I showed it to someone in my class and they glanced at it and they're like, oh my God, you're so busy. But the difference here is not only do I plan out things I quote unquote have to do, but I plan out things I want to do. So I make time for the things I want first, and then make time for the things I kind of quote unquote have to do. So this particular month, because I didn't have any like super strong commitments for any speaking engagements or anything like that, or any like really big freelance projects, I decided this month to sign up for in-person Chinese classes that are about 3 hours a day. I'm like, let's give it a shot, give it a try for a month, and then at the end of this month, I'm going to decide whether or not I'm going to like super commit to these in-person classes. So I made that commitment to myself, and the first thing I did was I wrote in my calendar, I made an invite for myself that just says Chinese school. I put the address of the school. Now, the reason why I put the address for that is I'm really, really bad at directions. And so putting the address in the calendar invite is really handy, because then if you're walking around with your phone and I want to check whether I want to take the bus or take the train or take a bicycle, I can open up my phone in the calendar invite, click on the direction, and Google will tell me exactly which is the fastest way to get to the school if I'm running late. So that's really, really handy. That removes like 30 or 45 seconds of Googling, which makes things a lot easier. So I committed to that. I filled up my calendar with that. So I know between 8:40 and 11:30 in the morning, like I'm committed this month to doing that. The next thing I'll always do is I always book lunch. I always book lunch for myself. And this seems kind of silly, but I had the really, really bad habit. I still have this bad habit I'm working on now of overcommitting myself and forgetting to eat. And so I always make sure I put lunch. During on Thursdays, I did this office hours thing, which I really like doing. But I'll move my lunch an hour later. And that forces me to think about, that forced me to remind myself, like, hey, like I really can't book. I really can't book any commitments at this time. I'm gonna be starving. So I'll do that. And then here is for anything that's like a task, like something I normally write in a to-do list. If it's a really small task, I'll make a calendar invite for myself to do it, but I'll make it for 15 minutes. I never make a task smaller than 15 minutes. Because if it's smaller than 15 minutes, if I really feel like it's a 5-minute task, I just do it right away. If, for example, if I really feel like it's only gonna take 5 minutes to reach out to someone, I just pull them out my phone and do it right away. So this is a good example. I owe my private Chinese teacher money for one class. However, because I read and write Chinese very poorly, it always takes me at least 15 minutes to use their banking system to like send money. So instead of using PayPal or Venmo in Taiwan, we just do this thing called bank transfers. And so you're able to log into your banking app, type in anyone's bank number, and send them money. But obviously, like unsurprisingly, my banking app is in Chinese. The website's in Chinese. Going through it is really, really hard. So it always takes me at least 15 minutes to send anybody any money. So I made sure I put a reminder for myself to pay her, and I did it right before we have a Chinese lesson. So I kept my private teacher going. So before I was doing 5 lessons a week with a private teacher. This month I'm testing out doing in-person classes 5 days a week and then having 2 private lessons per week. Now the reason why I'm doing both is the in-person classes are really great for forcing myself to just force myself to listen to Chinese, because like I really like how our teacher is teaching it in the in-person class. She doesn't ask anyone to raise their hand. She just like picks someone and asks them to give the answer. So you really have to be paying attention. So for example, maybe something on the board will say something like, "Oh, what do you like to eat?" And instead of being like, "Oh, someone raise their hand and tell me what do you like to eat," she'll just say, "James, 你想吃什么?" Like 你想吃什么? Like what do you like to eat? And so you have to be really paying attention to catch up to that. So I really, really like the in-person classes for that, the group classes for that. Where the group classes aren't great is for practicing speaking. And that's for two reasons. One, there's just, when you have more than one person, you can't focus. You got to teach to the average speed of the whole class. And so if like, if you're like repeating back, like the teacher really can't like spend the time to correct every little small thing that every single person does wrong while speaking, which is fine. And the other problem with the group classes for speaking is the good part is you get a lot of listening practice, listening to the teacher speak, and she does a really great job with that. The bad news is you also get a lot of listening practice of listening people say the words wrong in the class. So you have to be a bit careful there. I kind of lucked out because most of my class are from Japan, and about half of them, or like 2 or 3 of them, don't speak any English whatsoever. And so we want to talk about anything in between, like during the breaks or whatever, we kind of have to use Chinese. So that was kind of nice there. And now for the private lessons are really nice because they go at exactly the pace you can go at, and the private teacher will correct every little small thing I say wrong. So that's good. So that's why I'm trying to balance both the group classes and the private ones. And then I make time to study. So I make time to study my flashcards. And then the rest of the day has been, I went to I went to a meetup last night with Taiwan Gold Card holders. And that was to do some networking, meet some people. And then I got some notes and some business cards from some of those people. And so I'm going to make sure I spend some time doing follow-ups with them. I don't think it's going to take me the full hour, but I'm scheduling a full hour just in case. And then finally, I have a speaking gig coming up in a month. And so I'm making sure I make time to rehearse my keynote. And so make some time to do that. So, and then what I'll do also is, this is an example of me scheduling something fun to do. So I really like going on bike rides in Taiwan, especially at night. It's not too hot. There's really beautiful bike paths by the river. So I made sure to make some time to go on a bike ride. And then the Friday, what I usually do is I keep my Fridays as free as possible. And Fridays is kind of like, I keep that a little bit open, so that way if anything comes up during the week, I kind of throw it on Friday. And so this was pretty empty, but during the week it just gathered up stuff. So a good example is my band and Virtue, we're actually releasing an album early next year, and I just need to make some time for myself to make some product plans. So we don't want to just release just a CD and try selling CDs. We want to do like t-shirt bundles and printing vinyl. And I'm actually wanted to spend some time looking more deep into the NFTs. So I'm really like curious about finding a way to tie some sort of NFT project in with the album release. Because as a software engineer and like a cryptocurrency enthusiast, I'm really kind of excited about this NFT space. So I just made sure to book some time for myself to like figure that out. So that's kind of like how a full week looks. And then what I'll do is every Sunday, so I make a little invite for myself to plan the week. I take a look at what commitments I have that are like longer term commitments, and then try to fit in with my like larger goals. And so a good example here is I have this Chinese, Monday's a holiday for us in Taiwan, so I have that empty. But I have Chinese classes that I've already committed to, so those can't move, and that's okay. These Chinese lessons I can move if I really need to. And then usually I'll move my lunch here. On Thursdays I move my lunch. So that's my week starting from scratch there. Now I know I'll also be. I also want to schedule in some time for exercise. Right now I have a trainer, so I usually schedule sessions with him. I'm gonna meet him tomorrow, so we'll pencil in some time to work out. But a good example is usually on Wednesdays, I'll go for some sort of bike ride. So that's a way for me to get in my cardio while being pleasant. So I'll just write Wednesday bike ride. The nice thing is, like, if I want to change this, I can. So the other trick here is for anything to do with like fun stuff, like fun exercise, movable stuff, I'll pick orange or flamingo, tangerine as a color. That's just, I like doing the color coding. And the other trick here is I put this default as free. Now the reason why I put this default as free is that way if somebody tries to book a meeting with me with my Calendly link, so I have a Calendly link right here. Say if someone in a different time zone is trying to book a meeting with me, and I send them this Calendly link, I set that time to free, so that way they can still book a meeting. Because at the end of the day, I'm okay with moving my bike ride if like if somebody from like a different time zone wants to talk to me at that time. That's okay for me. But I'm not okay. I'm committed to these Chinese lessons, so I have these set to busy. So that way nobody, if they go to my Calendly link and they try to book time, they can't. There's no time slot for there. Then I also go through and I schedule in time to study. Now, this was the first week I started doing the daily Chinese lessons, like the daily group ones, and the studying is a lot more than I thought. It's a lot more than I thought, which is good. It's forced me to study, and so I was guessing that I would spend about an hour doing flashcards and an hour doing like the normal kind of Chinese work, but it's turning into a bit more than that. So that's why this schedule looks a little bit more full than usual, is because I ended up moving things during the week onto Friday because I had to spend a lot of time studying. So now I know, after spending this week, now I know I'm going to be spending at least 2 hours a day doing some sort of studying for Chinese for this. And so I'll go through and just book some time. So what I'll usually like to do is right after lunch, I'll just put flashcards. Now the reason why I do hashtag focus time is I'm testing out this new app called Rescue Time. I just started testing out a few days ago. And part of what it does is it looks at your calendar and then, is it focus time, focus work? It looks at your calendar and then analyzes how much time you're spending in doing focused work. And there's nothing more focused work than studying flashcards. like you can't get more focused than that. I have all my notifications turned off and I'm just studying flashcards. So what I'll do is I'll let this be free because I'm okay with rescheduling this in case somebody wants to take time. And I'll do any sort of Chinese studying I'll do in purple, just because. So I'll save that. So I'll do these in blocks of an hour because any more than an hour of studying, my brain hurts. I need to go for like a walk. Like I need to just take a break, get a bubble tea, anything but study Chinese. So I'll fill up some, but I know I need to spend, from this week, I've realized I have to spend at least 2 hours a day studying. And so I just make sure I schedule this in. So I'll do purple and then free, just in case. So I have lunch here. Really, on Thursday, it looks like I'm gonna have to I count the Chinese lesson that I do with my private teacher as an hour of studying Chinese. But on Thursday, I'm gonna have to spend 1 other hour doing flashcards. Flashcards, focused. Is it hashtag focus work? And then free. I give myself a little 15-minute break because you need a break after that. And then on Friday, I'll do the same thing. I'll take the hour right after lunch to do flashcards, hashtag focus work. So I'm committing to myself to go through this now. So free, save. So as you can see, like just by committing to this goal for this month of going through these Chinese lessons, it's similar to committing to spending when you commit to spend large chunks of time, it's similar to committing to spending large chunks of money. And what I mean by that is, great example is buying a car. Say a car costs $30,000. Most people think, okay, if a car costs $30,000, I just need to save up $30,000. It costs $30,000. But people forget when you buy a car, you have to think about insurance. You got to think about taxes. You got to think about registration fees, this whole thing, like everything. Whenever you buy a new large purchase item, there's usually a bunch of other things related to it that you're not thinking about. I've noticed the same thing happens with time. When you commit to a large chunk of work, you forget that there's auxiliary things you have to do for that chunk of work too. So in this example, it's Chinese lessons. A lot of people think, okay, I'm doing 3 hours of classes a day. That means I have the rest of the day free. But in reality, if you're doing 3 hours of classes a day, that means you need at least a couple hours to just prepare for the next class. Like you need time for homework. So that's the example of auxiliary time you have to dedicate on top of the time you've already sunk in. On the engineering side, a good example of that, a perfect example of this for any engineers, is the oh, it's going to take me 2 weeks to code this. That's usually true, but engineers were really, really good at forgetting to take into account time debugging, time testing, time deploying, time waiting for the pull request jobs to run. And so I've noticed the larger amount of time you commit to something, the more of these little auxiliary things you have to worry about too. And so planning your weekend in advance helps keep yourself honest to yourself. A great example of this is this focus work wrap-up Chainlink pull request. So a while ago, about a week ago, I submitted a pull request to Chainlink. It's like a crypto project. I found a way to help improve their documentation. I put it out there. And then I got a response back on actually Tuesday asking, okay, cool, can you just make these small changes? When do you think it'd be done? And then in my brain, I'm like, this shouldn't take more than an hour to do. But I pull up my calendar and I'm like, well, I've committed to the gym. I've committed to Chinese lessons. I've committed to studying my flashcards. I've committed to this meetup. I've committed to this, I've committed to that. And I realized, you know what, the only time I have to do this is on Friday afternoon that I kept open on purpose. I've noticed, especially on the engineer side, we'll think to ourselves, oh, it'll only take me 30 minutes to do this. Oh, it'll only take me an hour to do this. But oftentimes engineers forget that they've already committed to all this other stuff first. And so by writing in the calendar, I can see, like, you know what? I literally, like, on Tuesday, when I got the response at like 6 o'clock, I was like, you know what? I literally don't have any time until Friday to look at this pull request. And that's okay, because, like, it's an open source project, it's free. Like, it was for the docs page. So I don't have to shift priorities too much on that side. So flashcards, Chinese lessons, flashcards. I'll make another chunk here for review next day's lesson. So I found the trick for these Chinese classes, because I'm so far behind on the reading side, which is okay. That's fine. If I knew how to read, I wouldn't be in the class anyway. I realize the trick I have to do is I just have to look at the next day's lesson the day before and write an opinion. Otherwise, I'll show up to class and not have a freaking clue what's going on. And so I'll put reviews next day lesson and do hashtag focus work. On Fridays, I don't need to review next day lesson. I can do that on Sunday, so I'll put that there. And then, is there any other day I want to do a bike ride? I'll tentatively plan for like a bike ride here. Because I try to do two days of cardio and 3 days of weightlifting a week minimum. But I'll set this as free. And again, like these can change. A great example is 2 days ago, I didn't go on a bike ride because it was raining. It was fine. And so what I did instead was I spent some of that time studying more Chinese. So that's good too. And then when I start my day, well, usually when I start my day, I look at my whole day and I like think to myself, what do I need to move around? For example, I had these follow-ups scheduled at the wrong time, so I moved those up. But the idea is I keep my schedule as flexible as possible. The point of the schedule isn't to make myself feel like super overwhelmed or busy. It's just to like make sure I'm consciously spending my time on the things I want to spend time on. I also try to wrap things up by like 6 o'clock in the evening. Sometimes I cheat and do some extra stuff because I do realize like you only have so much energy, and realistically you probably can only do about 4 hours of super focused work before your brain hurts. And so I gotta make sure I spend those 4 hours of the focused work time that I have in a day on the goals that I really, really want to move forward. And currently the main goal I want to move forward is like getting through this month and learning Chinese. So I know since I only have about 4 hours of focus work energy, I gotta make sure I put that on the things I really want to do. So for example, this day, I'm spending about 2-ish hours on focus work energy and an hour on rehearsing my keynote. I'll be realistic with myself. I gotta delete this for today and spend more time on keynote, on study next day's lesson. Let's do more Chinese. Let's spend more of that time on Chinese. Now follow-ups, that's just answering emails. And so I can kind of like, I don't need much energy to be able to do that. I can do that while eating. I already have the notes on who to follow up with. So that's why I try to keep this stuff that's like email, administrative work, stuff that doesn't really require really deep focused thinking. I try to do that like at the end of the day. Because like I need as much thinking as I can earlier in the day, because especially now, because the amount of time, like the amount of focus it takes to pay attention to like a class like this is a lot, versus the amount of focus it takes to respond to emails isn't that big of a deal. What this also helps me do is helps me identify where I'm spending time on like administrative tasks and things that I could potentially outsource in the future. A great example of this is, for example, I found myself consistently forgetting to change the cover for these YouTube videos after the live stream. And so I've written that down as a potential thing I could automate and delegate away. I've told myself is once I can find 4 hours of work that I'm consistently repeating that I can't easily automate a week. Once I have that really planned out, I'm going to pursue finding like a virtual assistant to do stuff. So a great example is a virtual assistant could do something like change the cover, change the title for my YouTube videos every week. Like that would be a big help. A virtual assistant could like plan out a bunch of my calendar stuff for me. I can tell them like, hey, I want to make sure I spend at least 2 hours studying Chinese a day. So fit that in with other stuff. So I think I'll take the plunge and do that by the end of the month. I'll see how this month goes and then take the plunge there. But that is how I kind of look at managing time. I really treat my time just like how I would treat like budgeting money. But I really do think budgeting the time is actually more important, in my opinion, than budgeting money. Because if you spend your time in the right place, certain decisions you make will make you tons of money. Or actually, even more importantly, certain decisions, if you make the wrong decision, you can lose all your money. So a great quote I've heard, I forget from who, it's any number multiplied by 0 is 0. And so if you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off and you make a bad decision with money, like you can wipe everything out. And so that's why focusing on the time side's been really, really important to me. That being said, I think that's everything for the day I wanted to go through. Let me see if, because I can only see the chat on YouTube right now. See if there's anything on Twitch really quickly. I don't think there's any chats on the Twitch. Let's see. Okay, cool. Nothing on Twitch. And that reminds me, I need to make time on the calendar to check Discord. That'd be really helpful. Well, that being said, thanks everyone for coming by. I will catch you next week. I'm probably going to reschedule these to like 15 minutes later from now on, because I realize like it's really, really tight going from the class to here. But I'll update that, and I'll catch you all later.